Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace reporting live here at the bar next door here in New York City. Jazz guitarist and educator Dave Stryker has been doing his thing. In fact, he has a dynamic CD entitled Blue to the Bone Volume 4, and it features great jazz musicians ranging from Freddie Hendrix, Vincent Gardner, to McClinty Hunter. Tonight he's performing with the Dave Stryker Organ Trio, and this is one of many ensembles that he performs with and has been performing with over the last 30 years. Tonight we're going to sit down and talk about this brand new CD. We're going to talk about him being an instructor and a teacher at Montclair State College in New Jersey, where he's teaching the next generation of jazz musicians the origins of this music, as well as how to improvise, as well as become dynamic musicians. Also, we're going to sit down and talk about his origins growing up in Omaha, Nebraska, and how he was exposed to the music. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of the Dave Stryker Organ Trio, live here at the bar next door here in New York City. Congratulations on Blue to the Bone 4. This is another funky recording. I mean, you've got a hodgepodge of great musicians on here. You're doing a little bit of your originals, as well as you're doing some Isley Brothers, as well as some other compositions as well.
Yeah, this is a project that I've been doing since the mid-'90s, the Blue to the Bone group. It started out as with bass, and Jay Anderson on bass, and Bruce Barth on piano, and a horn section and myself. And this time I decided to use my organ trio along with the four horns, so it's a little bit different. And we did some music of mine. We did a song by the great Robert Johnson, Come On in My Kitchen. We did a tune by the Isley Brothers, For the Love of You. And we did a Nat Adderley tune that I love called Fun. So it's kind of a mixture, yeah.
And you did some James Brown also.
Don't forget. Soul Power.
That's right.
Yeah, so this band is about the groove, about having some fun. It's about bringing the people into the music. You know, it's just it's good stuff, but it's not compromised at all. But it's just we hit some different grooves, and it's definitely music that makes people move their head, tap their feet, move their butt, whatever else.
Dave, you have about 3 or 4 different groups that you work with, and I want to know how you choose the music for, because you and Steve Slagle work together. Then there's the organ trio, which we're hearing tonight, and then there's Blue to the Bone, and then you've done a big band project. How do you select the type of music for those different ensembles?
Well, a lot of times if I'm going in to do a record date, I will think about the musicians I'm going to be playing with and try to write the way that I hear their playing, in that composition. So that's oftentimes inspiring to write that way. For instance, when Billy Hart records, or Victor Lewis, one of these great drummers, I think about how they play and think about how, I would like to set up something that we could play together. With the organ group, I love doing this because we could do all standards if we want, and that's kind of how I cut my teeth. Starting out with Jack McDuff for a couple of years back in the 84 and 85, and before that, back in Omaha, playing with a great organ player named John Maller. So the organ trio has always been close to my heart. It was funny, after I played with Jack for those years, I kind of stopped playing with the organ for many years. I just kind of, felt I did that. And then later, we did a record for SteepleChase with Joey DeFranscisco. And then there was a club in my neighborhood called Cecil's for about 10 years. Cecil Brooks III started. And so they had an organ in there, a B3, and I met Jared there. And we had a Tony Reedus on drums for many years. Rest in peace, the great Tony Reedus. And so I've just kept it going. I enjoy it because it's just a dream to play with organ, with guitar. It's a match made in heaven. My group is Steve Slagle. We do more original music that Steve and I write. We actually Steve has a new record out called Even Song right now that I'm on and co-produced, and that features more original stuff. So it kind of, depending on the group, it dictates what we're going to do.
You know, you are going back, I guess, full circle into the whole organ trio thing. What is it about the organ in jazz music as well as the guitar? Because, you know, we go back in the great annals of great jazz groups. We think of Grady Tate, we think of Wes Montgomery, and we think of other ones. What is it about the organ and the trio that keeps the people really moved when you hear it?
I think it has to do with the bass pumping, kicking it with your foot and with your left hand on the organ. As Jimmy Smith was one of the first of the to bring popularity to the organ. It just grooves. It's hard to describe until you hear it, but you know it because you hear it, and I know it when I hear it. The organ just grooves, man, and it locks in with the drummer in a special way. And he's also playing the harmony and the bass at the same time, so he really can lock in what's happening musically. You got chords, bass, the groove, and it's just I was lucky to get to play with most of the great organ players, from Jimmy Smith and McDuff. Jimmy Smith would sit in with us, and I got to play with McGriff, Jimmy McGriff, Groove Holmes, Dr. Lonnie Smith, of course. So it'll always be part of my DNA, I think, the organ sound. But, of course, I love those Larry Young records and Grant Green and Elvin Jones. That's some of my favorite music, too. So, the organ can go in a lot of different ways. It can go groove, it can go more open, it can go standards, it can be as modern as you want. So it's a great instrument.
Begin in Nebraska, and I want to know how a guy like you got exposed to jazz living in Nebraska.
I started out playing rock bands, and I got an early start. By the time I was 13, I was in a band that was gigging, and it was mostly rock music, blues-based kind of rock stuff. And I went to a jam session at the Union Hall, and there were some guys playing a Song for My Father by Horace Silver. And I never forget, I got up there and started playing, sitting in and just playing my rock licks over it. And one of the guys came up to me afterwards and said, "Man, you can't be playing that. You know, this is jazz. You got to be playing. You know, learn this music." So I went to the record store and picked up. Said, "Where's this jazz? I wanna buy a couple records, man, and see what this jazz thing is all about." And I'll never forget. I still have those 2 records. I bought Coltrane, My Favorite Things, and George Benson, Beyond the Blue Horizon. And I like to say that after hearing that, you know, I started with the best, and I just got hooked. And that's the way to really learn this music, is just to love it, to listen to it. I got into, like you said, Wes Montgomery, all the greats like that, and Benson, Pat Martino, Jim Hall, Joe Pass, and all the great horn players, Miles and Coltrane and Herbie, piano. You know, just got totally into it, and didn't look back.
Dave, looking back now, and you have written a successful book on jazz improvisation for guitar, how did you come about to transcribe a lot of the great masters and put it into your own language for other, I guess, students of the music to learn what you've learned?
Well, you know, I've been teaching for quite a while, and the book kind of started as a students asking me questions. How do you approach playing over the song? How do you play over the song tune-up? And I would show them, you know, ways that I think of playing through these kind of tunes, and then I would write it out so that they could take it home, and then I'd put it in a pile over there, and next thing you know, the pile was getting bigger and bigger, and I said, heck, you know, I should put this into a book. So Mel Bay actually published the book originally, and I've since then added another volume to it and expanded it. But you know, I enjoy teaching. I do a fair amount of private teaching. I do a lot of workshops and clinics at colleges. In the summertime, I do a lot of workshops. And I also teach at Montclair State now, adjunct. And you know, it's I feel like you should pass it on. I had mentors when I was growing up in Omaha, guys that saw potential in me and gave me gigs and helped me along. And that needs to be passed along. You know, then I got to, you know, got a few breaks working with Jack McDuff, worked with Stanley Turrentine for 10 years. And I feel like at this point, you know, if I can help somebody to find their own voice, you know, I'm glad to do it, you know, keep the music going.
Dave, are you happy with today's next generation of jazz musicians? Do you think that they're connected with the elders like you were? And do you think that the next generation of jazz guitarists and jazz musicians are going to be able to communicate the vernacular of the history as well as the music moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the music's in good hands. There's a lot of great young players out there, and I think that the music will continue and go where it's supposed to. Unfortunately, a lot of the masters, people like myself and the generation before that got to play with a lot of these, you know, masters, they're not around anymore. So I believe it's up to my generation to help the next generation along. Each one helps another, and I think the music's in good hands. You know, there's some great players. You know, if you want to do it and you have it in your heart and soul, you'll have something to say.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the bar next door here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank Dave Stryker and the Dave Stryker Organ Trio for their time, as well as the hospitality and the management and staff here at the bar next door. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.